Afternoon again, everyone. Thanks so much for coming. Great to see a large number in the room. And welcome to this seminar on young people in translation, or, as you might have seen it in some places, youth in translation. It's got two alternative titles. I'll explain why in a little minute. My name's Paul Kay. I work for the European Commission. I work as a translator at the European Commission. European Commission, one of several institutions and bodies that make up the European Union civil service government administration. And we have lots and lots of translators working in that European civil service. Over 4,000 staff translators, mainly located in Brussels and in Luxembourg, who do translation for the EU. And this seminar is being held under the European Commission's Translating Europe initiative. Translating Europe is the name that we give to our program of outreach with the wider translation community in Europe. And each year, for instance, we hold a forum, a big forum called the Translating Europe Forum in Brussels. The next one is, I think, the 29th and 30th of October. I think we like to see it as some kind of European Translation Summit, something like that. If you haven't got tickets for the seminar in Brussels, the Translating Europe Forum in Brussels, you can follow it online. If you search for Translating Europe Forum, you can find that. You'll be able to follow it online. But in addition to that major forum that we hold every year in Brussels, we also hold national events that we call workshops. So we have national Translating Europe workshops. And this seminar is one of those workshops. I think that's the third in the series. So held at national level. And in that, the European Commission works with partners, and I think all three events we've held in conjunction with the Institute of Translation and Interpreting and the Chartered Institute of Linguists, the two main professional bodies for translators in this country, and we're very pleased to work with them. And so when we were thinking about what we wanted to, what theme we wanted to address at our Translating Europe workshop this year here at the Language Show, we looked at the Translating Europe Forum, and the theme for that Translating Europe Forum next week or the week after is, or was originally, Youth in Translation. Youth in Translation. So we just took the same title. We said we'll do Youth in Translation, and then we thought, well, actually, how old do you have to be a youth? Where does being a youth end? And we looked into it a bit more and spoke to our colleagues in Brussels who had thought up this title and the theme for the Translating Europe Forum, and we realized we were actually really targeting people who are a bit older than youths, because in English, I think youth probably ends at maybe 16 or 17. So we decided we would rename it as being Young People in Translation, not Youth in Translation, but it's still Youth in Translation on some of the material that you'll have seen. So we chose Young People in Translation as our theme, and what we decided to do was to invite a panel together of people who are still classified as young, in our eyes anyway, who have been making their way in translation, in various fields of translation and in various different forms of translation, and get them to talk about their experiences as young people in the translation sector. And then to allow you to ask your questions to them. Maybe some of you are young people yourselves and you're aspiring translators and you might want to benefit from their wisdom. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask our panel to introduce themselves, first of all, one by one, and just with a couple of minutes explain a little bit about their background, what they do, their journey so far in translation, and then we're just going to throw it open to you to ask questions of the panel. And if you don't have any questions, I, as chair, will think up some questions that we'll put to them, and hopefully we'll get the discussion going. So I'm going to start off by asking the panel one by one. I'll start with Lloyd Bingham, first of all, on the right as you look at it, to introduce himself and talk to you for a couple of minutes. Lloyd.
Thank you, Paul. Good afternoon. My name is Lloyd Bingham, and I run my own translation business as a freelance translator in Cardiff. I'm a translator from French, German, Spanish and Dutch into English. I first thought about translation as a career in the last year of my undergraduate degree when I studied at Newcastle, because I really enjoyed and frankly was good at the translation modules that were offered as part of my degree. But crucially, I noticed that my reading and writing skills were much higher than my sort of speaking and listening skills in my foreign languages. That's why I'd make a pretty crap interpreter. So when I was at uni and thinking about becoming a translator, I realized I'd need some good practical experience under my belt. And that would put me then in a strong position when applying for in-house jobs, because that's what I wanted to do. Rather than study for a master's, I wanted to sort of acquire experience in-house. So not only did I translate as part of my language degree, which of course counts as experience on your CV, I also sought to gain volunteer experience. And I did that by approaching the Welsh National Opera in Cardiff, because I knew that they worked with languages in their profession, with their performances, things like that. And I worked with one of their translators to translate some poems from German into English. So that was some good voluntary experience that I thought employers would really value. And I worked hard on my CV to really emphasize my translation experience, as well as the skills that I'd acquired at university, because I didn't really have any life experience at that stage. And it's good to highlight your linguistic and cultural skills on your CV too. What modules are you studying? What kind of knowledge is that giving you? And what kind of skills can you take from that you might be able to apply to translation? So I built a website to try and stand out while I was still studying and looking to apply for in-house translation jobs. And this website was basically an extension of my CV. And I was able to go into more detail about what I'd learned from these translation modules. And it also functioned as a blog. And I'd often blog about translation-related issues. And I'd sometimes sort of do translations just for fun. Let's say I'd go onto the German news website, Bild. I'd take an article from that and translate it and then put it on my website. Again, I thought that's something potential employers would really value. After doing that, I did some research into what translation companies there are in the UK that employed in-house translators, because it's crucial to make that difference. Some don't employ in-house translators. Some exclusively outsource their work to freelancers. So I sent out speculative applications. I wasn't really applying for specific positions with these translation companies. I was just emailing them my CV out of the blue. But I was called in for an interview with one of these in-house translation companies, and I was sitting translation tests and doing these interviews at the same time as doing my final exams for university. I got the job, fortunately, and I spent 3 years at this translation company in Northumberland, training on the job, working under very experienced senior translators who'd all provide feedback on my work. That's how essentially I learned to translate. And that helped me to also develop specialisms, in-depth knowledge of marketing and business text, which I enjoy the most, but also legal and technical fields. Because if you work for an in-house translation company, they do try to get you to do as much as possible and whatever their clients send them, basically. So you do get a lot of intensive training that way. After 2 years there, I moved into a senior translation position myself. So it was my turn to review the translations of less experienced translators. I left that job just over a year ago, moved back to Cardiff and started my own translation business, which I now run to date. So that was July or August last year, so I've only been freelancing for about a year. My old company was my first client, of course, and in the early days of my business, I approached several agencies, but my best clients have come to me through my membership of the ITI, because if you join a professional association like that, you get listed in their online database, and the top clients know about this database, and they can find you through that. Another major source of good clients is referrals, and if you build your professional network, if you're online a lot, in a professional capacity, you'll meet other professionals, develop relationships with them, that can lead to them referring their clients to you. That's another source of work, and it works both ways. I in turn pass work on to them. So that's my pathway so far.
Great, thanks for that, Lloyd. Okay, we'll go straight on to our next speaker, who's Jessica Cucchiarini.
Hi, my name is Jessica. I graduated from a university in Italy with a degree in modern languages, English and Spanish. My undergraduate degree involved a year abroad at the University of Birmingham, and I followed a few modules in translation, and that's when I got really interested in translation. I decided I wanted to be a translator. So I moved back to Birmingham and I started a master's in translation studies. During my postgraduate degree, I had the opportunity to specialize in medical translation, with a particular interest in clinical trials documents. My dissertation was a translation from English into Italian of a patient information sheet and a clinical trial protocol, that two medical documents used in clinical trials. And then I decided I wanted to start my own business, and I managed to do that with the help of a University Business Enterprise Award. So I managed to build my own website. I did it myself. It took a while, 3 months, and I translated it into different languages with the help of, obviously, native speaker of Spanish and English. And I also work as a project manager full-time in a translation company. So in the future, I would like to work as a translator full-time and not as a project manager. But I think it's a really good opportunity to see what the other side look like, what rates they're asking for, and yeah, so you get to know the translation industry. And I think it was really important to do like workshop and seminars in medical translation, to specialize in medical translation, because obviously agencies at the beginning, they won't trust you to do medical translation if you are just a new freelance. So you need to show that you are able to do medical translation. So I did a lot of courses in biology. So I went back to school, biology, and then medicine and cancer science. So just to show people that I have the knowledge to do medical translation. And my work at the moment is translation of patient information sheet, patient leaflet, and case report or related to medical documents, but also general text. Yeah, that's me.
Okay, thanks, Jessica. The next speaker is Helen Ockley-Brown.
Hello, I'm Helen. I'm a freelance translator. I've been a freelance translator for about 6 years. And I translate business text, and by that I mean promotional text, so sort of marketing, websites, brochures. And I work from French and Spanish. I have an undergraduate degree in modern languages, in French and Spanish. And in my final year, I was a bit worried because I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't really know anything other than, I could speak French and Spanish. And then we had translation modules, and translation as, for translation, to write good text and to write purposeful text rather than translation as a linguistic exercise. Found out I was good at it, I really enjoyed it, and speaking to my tutors, they encouraged me to do a master's, and I did a master's at Westminster, and that was more of a writing course, really. They really got our English into good shape, because your target language, the language you translate into, is your real selling point. It's got to be beautiful. And then, so I did that master's, and I picked up 2 other languages on the way, although I don't use them anymore, but I did study Portuguese and Polish with my master's, and they were, when I first went freelance, they were a really good hook to get clients in, because, something exotic, not that they are, but French and Spanish are so common that having 2 other languages was a real selling point. I've only ever worked in translation. I got my first job as a terminologist because of one of my tutors at Westminster. They posted a job, I applied for it. As a terminologist, my job was to compile glossaries and translation memories from previous translations, so we could sort of recycle work and keep all of our work consistent. That meant I had to learn how to use translation memory software and develop my IT skills, which are essential if you're going to work as a translator. I did that for about a year, and then I really missed actually writing and translating, so I got a job as a translator and a project manager. It's a combined job at a small translation agency, and the agency was only about 2 years old, and we had to do everything at first. It was great fun. We had to, sales, marketing, negotiation, and translate and outsource jobs to other linguists. And at first I was translating quite a bit, and it was brilliant, but as time went on, the company grew. I ended up managing more, which is not where I wanted to go. And so I jumped ship and I went freelance 6 years ago. One of the first things I did when I was freelance, I took the ITI, it was called Peer Support Group then, I think it's now starting up as a freelance translator. It's an online course led by some of the best in their field, I imagine we can call them, translators who really make you think of yourself as a business and how to set up, how to, basic things like invoicing and CVs and practical things that you really have to master. Lloyd's actually now one of the tutors on the course, so I imagine he'll be talking about that later. But that really changed my mindset and got me thinking more about myself as a business and as a freelancer and how I had to sell my services to clients. And then, so over time I've been building up my specialisms, so I work mostly with business texts. And last year, I sat the ITI exam, so I'm now a qualified member. And as Lloyd said, it's great because you're then, as well as all the other benefits that being in a professional organisation bring, you're also listed on the ITI site, which is a big pull for clients. And yes, I think that's me done. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Helen. The next speaker is Tom Gale.
Hi. So my background in languages probably started in about year 3 or 4. I joined my primary school French club. Really enjoyed that. Carried on with languages all the way through secondary school. Ended up with A-level French. Carried on with French university. Studied French with International Studies at the University of Warwick, which included a year abroad as a teaching assistant in Paris. Sometime about halfway through my degree, I was just kind of thinking, what am I going to do? I want to use my language. I don't want to really go into some kind of graduate scheme or that type of stream. So I did start thinking about translation a bit like Helen. And a couple of the modules that we did at Warwick did involve translation both ways, English to French and French to English, which I really quite enjoyed, particularly the whole problem-solving aspect of it. So my final year, I attended a Roots into Language event at Aston University. They were talking about careers in translation and interpreting. And I ended up doing a master's at Aston, translation in a European context, which is part of the European Masters in Translation Network, which is a partnership program between European Commission and a number of universities in the UK and across Europe. I think the UK has about 12 university courses linked to that program all around the country as well. My master's was a mixture of academic, so things like translation theories, there was dissertation, and a project on language for special purposes, so legal language, medical language, that type of thing. After I finished my master's, I did a short internship at a translation company in Leamington Spa, and then spent all the money I earned from that going to Spain, learned a bit of Spanish, came back with no money, and found myself in a job in project management. I did that for 2 years. It was at a small agency, so that kind of required, it was an all-encompassing job. There was a small bit of translation, some editing, proofreading, sales, marketing, quoting, invoicing, vendor management, anything you can think of that goes on in a translation company, I more or less did it. To the point where after 2 years I thought, right, I definitely want to be translating now. So like Helen, I left and have been translating freelance from my office/bedroom in Blackheath in South East London. I translate from French and Spanish to English, and I specialise in medicine. That's about it.
Great, thanks very much, Tom. And our final speaker, I think, has a slightly different story because she works for a different kind of organisation to the previous 4, is Catherine Knight.
Yes, my name's Catherine. I work as a translator at the Council of the European Union, and I actually studied law rather than modern languages. I graduated in 2008 with an English and French law degree. So that involved 2 years of studying law in the UK at Sheffield Hallam University and 2 years of studying French law at Paris 12 University. I then went on to work as a legal assistant in Paris and London for 5 years. And all of my legal experience involved languages to some extent. So, for example, I worked in a UK law firm based in Paris in the asset finance department. I worked in an American law firm in London on a large-scale project involving a French client, so lots and lots of French language documents to trawl through. In 2013, I decided I was ready for a change, and I entered the 2013 English Language Translator competition organised by the European Personnel Selection Office, or EPSO, and I joined the council in January of this year. So I currently work from French and Spanish into English. I learnt Spanish through evening classes and intensive language courses in Spain and South America, but didn't actually study Spanish as part of my degree. I'm also studying Bulgarian as of last month, so I know how to say, my name is Catherine. That's about it. But in theory, in 3 years, I should be able to translate from Bulgarian as well. I think that's about it.
Okay, great, Catherine. Thanks very much. So each of our panelists have sketched out briefly their situation, how they got into translation, where they are in their translation careers. I'm going to throw it open now straight away to you to ask questions of them if you want advice, if you want to ask about any particular aspect of their career so far. I should also say that all three organisations that are co-organising this event, the European Commission, the Chartered Institute of Linguists and the Institute of Translation and Interpreting, we all have stands downstairs in the exhibition. So if you want to find out more information, you can come and talk to us down there, and various people on the panel are on those stands, including me, which is why I'm wearing this T-shirt and not a smart shirt and tie. I'll ask a yes or no question to the panel. You are young people who've now had a bit of experience of the translation sector. Would you recommend to other young people, younger people than you, to go into translation? Is it an area that you'd recommend young people to go into? Yes or no? Just down the line.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's what I was hoping for. So there, with all that encouragement, I hope there's a question in the audience. Anybody want to put the first one?
Hi, do you have regular customers that you use, clients, or do you spend a lot of your time seeking new ones because you just get the odd job here and there? And how long, if you do, how long that take to establish?
Yes, a bit of both. I do have regular clients sending me jobs every couple of weeks or every week, but you have to set aside, you can't translate 40 hours a week, you have to set aside time every week as a freelancer to hunt out new business. So it's a bit of both. But yes, I do have a steady flow, but I make sure there's time, because there's always another opportunity, more interesting client, perhaps better paying client, and you should always be on the lookout. And also as a freelancer, if someone just, stops calling for whatever reason, it doesn't mean you've done anything wrong, but you lose that income stream. So you can't really rely on just one or two. You have to keep a few in the works.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I'd say it took me about 9 months or so of freelance or being a full-time freelancer before I got a real steady stream in, and I kind of knew that I'd be able to pay the bills. That's not to say I'm fully established or have kind of like a big career plan, but I think in my first few months I sent off hundreds and hundreds of application letters to agencies, which initially wasn't so successful, but now my best in terms of probably almost pay, regular client, friendly people to work with, good payers, the whole lot. They contacted me out of the blue about 6 months after I'd sent them my application to say, oh, notice you do this, you do medical, can you take on this proofreading project for us? And then since then it's grown and grown and grown. And they're now my best client. So it does take time initially. And as Helen says, you have to keep working at it. You can't spend all your time fixated on a good client because they could be here today, gone tomorrow.
So be patient and it will
Yes.
come.
I've had that as well. I've sort of approached a new client, and sometimes they don't even respond to you, but then they'll come back to you 6 months, maybe a year later. Suddenly they need your services in your specific languages or specialisms. When you do start out, you spend a lot of time approaching new clients. Agencies are the safest bet to start off with, but some do go straight to direct clients first. And regular clients make up most of my work too. But you do get approached by sort of ad hoc clients, sometimes private individuals who need their marriage certificate translated, and then they'll never need anything off you again. But I think one of the keys to success, from my point of view, is establishing a good working relationship with long-term clients to ensure a reliable stream of income. And you should, even if you're in a comfortable position, you think you've got good clients, they're paying you a good rate, you should still be looking for even better clients.
Hi, I'm Eva. I'm a German and English interpreter and translator, and I have been freelance for 2 years now. And I don't have a website, and I was wondering how you feel about that, and whether you recommend it's very important or not, because I feel it's always praised as the best way to get work, but I feel memberships and being on registers is sufficient. Not always, but has been very good for me. So I was wondering what you recommend in terms of online presence.
Hi. Well, I started not long ago to work as a freelance as well as project manager, and I did my website myself, and there's a lot of online platform you can use to do your website, and you can build it as you like. And obviously there are adverts at the bottom, but you can get rid of them paying a fee every year. And it was hard work, but I think it was worth, because what people do nowadays is just Google your name, and if they see your face, they see yourself as a person, I think that will make them trust you. Like, they see who you are, they see that you are a real person, because sometimes, translators, people can just say, oh, I'm a translator, but then you can't find them anywhere online. But it's good to have an online presence, I think, because, they see how you are, they see how you look, you see that you are a person, and they can see what you've done until now. So I think it's a good way to start a website. Yeah, I think it needs to be very professional. It doesn't need to have any grammar errors as well, because it doesn't look very good for a translator to have mistakes in the website. But I think it's a good way to start.